All rise. Now, this is case number 422 on the calendar in the matter of Lillard versus Flynn Christensen. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ladies, have seats, please.
Mrs. Lillard, you took care of the defendant's little girl from the time she was practically an infant for about 10 months. Your lawsuit seeks compensation for taking care of her expenses that you paid for during that 10-month period. So first, why don't you tell me how it came about that you were taking care of their baby?
Martha's mother is one of my best friends, and my daughter used to babysit for Martha, and Tiffany came into our lives, and Martha and Gary were having a hard time.
This is Martha.
Tiffany's mother, Tiffany's father, Gary. Tiffany came into our lives, and Martha asked me if I would take care of Tiffany because they were having a hard time and had no electricity, no water, and I did.
When you say if you would take care of her, you mean come and stay in your home?
Right.
How old was she at the time?
About 3 months. She became a part of our family.
How many are in your family?
There's 4, my husband, my son, my daughter, and myself.
Did she come back to visit the child?
Periodically, yes.
Why didn't your mother take care of the child?
My mother was having problems of her own with my father. They're in the verge of divorce, and I moved out of my home when I was very young. So I was on my own feet for quite a while.
How old are you?
I am 21.
How many children do you have?
I have 2.
How old are they?
2 and 1.
And the 1-year-old is the child that we're talking about.
It's Tiffany.
Are you the father of the older child?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old are you?
I'm 23.
So what kind of problems were you having that forced you to turn over one of your children to the plaintiff?
A lot of problems between me and him.
What kind of problems?
During relationship-wise, we weren't communicating. He was either at work or coming home late. I was either not caring about my home at home, taking care of my children, or keeping my house up. We weren't communicating in some sort of way.
Who was taking care of your older child when she was taking care of the baby?
The reason why she moved to that house, I did not ask her. She had voluntarily, out of the kindness of her heart, to help me in a spot.
Why don't you answer my question? I said, when she was taking care of your infant, who was taking care of your older child?
I was.
Your older child at that point was a year old.
That is right. My water, my gas, my electricity, everything was off. I was only in my home while everything was off for maybe 2 weeks, not even that. I was in the process of moving out of that house.
So you had your older child, that's a boy, with you?
Staying at her house continuously, going back and forth.
Just a second. The baby is sleeping at her house. Your little boy is who's a year old, is sleeping at your house without gas, electric, water. Is that right?
That is right.
Okay. Now, how long did you leave the baby with the plaintiff?
10 months. With me living there periodically, in and out.
What kind of periodically?
Whenever she got up the urge to throw me out for a silly reason.
Whenever who got the urge?
Christy or her husband, Gary.
Listen, I don't know whether we're speaking the same language. Did Martha live with you, stay with you for long periods of time with her son?
No, she would not allow it.
I didn't ask you whether she would not allow it, because she doesn't have to do anything for you.
No, she doesn't.
So all I asked was, did she stay with you for long periods of time?
No, not long periods. There was one time in October when she stayed with me for 3 weeks because I didn't know what to do for Martha. Martha came back from Missouri. She was here for about 6 or 7 weeks before she even contacted me to see Tiffany or to see, to have any kind of relationship with her.
What were you doing in Missouri?
I moved back home due to the problems that me and him were having. And I came back here to retrieve my daughter.
When did you go back to Missouri?
Oh, let's say in April, June. I went back. And I got settled up there with my mother. I had a job. I was on my own. My children would have to have their own rooms. I was on my feet by myself singly.
So that's, let's say, from June to October you were in Missouri?
No, I was up there for 2 months. I came back
June,
down
July.
in August.
Came back in August. Where did you go?
I stayed with some friends until I can get my daughter and go back home. I was only
So you stayed with some friends.
That's right.
And where was your son all this time?
My mother was taking care of him.
And where were you all this time?
I was here.
Here, where?
I was at Riverside, where I was living with my grandparents.
And how often did you go and visit with your daughter, Tiffany?
I visited as often as I could. At a
What is
period
that?
of times, I was going over there every other day. I was making the effort that I could to see her as much as possible.
Good. Were you providing any financial support for her?
Well, my grandmother, she was has been purchasing diapers by cases every month, and now I am reimbursing her for whatever she has paid for the diapers and juices and stuff like that.
Now, while I lived there, I give her money. I was on aid. I was giving her food stamps. I was filling the whole house with food, juice, milk, whatever.
Uh-huh. So let me understand this. You were a resident of the state of California. Is that right?
Yes, I was.
And you were collecting welfare for yourself and your 2 children.
Yes, I was.
Just answer my question. Now, you were collecting welfare for your daughter from the time she was born and registered as having been born until what time?
The only times I collected for her was when I was living with her at Christy's house. I was not receiving aid for Tiffany.
You were not?
I was getting medical benefits, and that's it. And I had my case terminated.
When did you have your case terminated?
I believe it was in last year, exactly, of September. I only received aid for her for 3 months after she was born, and then my aid was terminated. I was not getting aid for her. I only received aid for my son.
And you also applied for aid for him in Missouri.
Yes, because I had him with me up there.
So you were now, and did you get money from welfare in Missouri for him?
For him.
And so you were also getting money from California for him.
No, I was not getting money.
When did you close your case in California for him?
It was terminated 2 months before I left California for my son.
Why?
Because I knew I was moving out there. I had a job. I was working at the time.
You weren't working at the time. You hadn't even moved there yet. Why would you cancel your case 2 months before you
with
moved?
my family underneath the tables. I was doing little jobs babysitting.
So you were working under the table. You were getting cash under the table while you were collecting welfare.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Listen, you seem to think that everybody else is wrong and
No.
you're right.
I'm completely
You're-
wrong.
So say I'm completely wrong.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christina Lillard wants Martha Flynn and Gary Christensen to pay for nearly a year of child care.
This is an approval notice dated July of 1998 that you applied for temporary assistance
That's right.
for yourself and your 2 children.
That's right.
And your first check was going to be in August of 98, as you have already received
a check.
a check for July in California.
Well, I never got that check.
That's what it says here.
As a matter of fact, when I was on aid, that was going to her house, and she has been known to cash frauds of checks. She has scammed the pizza place.
So
She's not even living in her own home, Your Honor. She can't even pay her own bills. That's why the baby was pulled out of there.
I want you to be quiet. First month, prorated for July and August, you will receive $547. After that, $360 for yourself and your 2 children.
When I got back with Tiffany to show she was in my care.
That's not what it says here at all. That's not what it says here at all.
Anybody knows when you apply for aid, you have to show your children in your care.
No,
Anywhere.
no, listen to me. Listen to me. You have to show a child.
That's right.
Doesn't
and I only had
necessarily
one.
have to be your child. You've
I
got to
only
bring
had
a
one.
child. I've been in this business a very long time.
You've got to show the baby's birth certificate. You've got to show the baby's immunization cards. The baby's shots weren't bought up for 10 months. You didn't ever have the baby's immunizations when she was in your care.
Judge Judy, I did have her
Yeah,
immunization
Just a
shots
second.
done.
It's not necessary. This
When I had-
person is trying to make excuses for something that I don't understand. You have another problem, Miss Lillard, and I'm going to tell you what it is. These 2 people, I shouldn't say him, I'm not sure about him, but probably, have figured out to get the most out of the state that they possibly can with doing the very least that they possibly can. And she's all over the place. She's in Missouri, she's in California, she's in with hot water, without hot water, with electricity, without electricity. 20 years old, she has 2 babies, and he's doing...
That is right.
I don't know what. But you're supposed to be responsible. So if you are living at home, you're supposed to be working, and you're supposed to make sure that you that your two children aren't getting welfare. You look like a big, strong person. Why were your two children getting welfare anywhere?
I was working.
Well, why were your two children getting welfare anywhere? You don't know. Did you know that they were getting welfare?
Yes.
Why didn't you go down to the welfare office and say to them, listen, I'm working. Nobody has to support my children but me. Right?
Right.
Could I just show you one more thing?
Yeah.
This is why. If you would give this to her, please.
Oh, we have a copy of that too.
What is this?
When I received power of attorney for medical reasons in August, it was the same day that Gary filed for custody of his two children against Martha.
That's right.
That is basically Martha's response to what had happened from the time that Gary filed for custody, gave me temporary custody of Tiffany to where I could go get her immunization shots, in which I did.
She was
And
10 months behind.
Could you be quiet?
she was
What do you
like-
blame? Listen, you seem to think that everybody else is wrong and
No.
you're right.
No,
you make a baby.
I'm completely
you-
wrong.
So say I'm completely wrong.
And I'm willing to take what I have, my responsibilities.
Good.
But in order of all this, she's upset because we have taken the baby out of the home, which I know she has grown attached to my child. I know this. And I've
Well-
never, she knew I was, once I got on my feet, I wanted to come back and take care of my
Well,
daughter.
let me ask you a question. That's true. And I just started to explain to Ms. Lillard that her problem is, with regard to your lawsuit, that you didn't have an agreement with her that I saw here that they were going to support the baby.
If you would have her read number 5.
None of these were under reimbursements,
Let me
which
see. You don't even know what you're showing me.
I never signed anything.
You didn't have to, Gary did.
And could that have been after you accepted care
Could
for
you
my
be
daughter?
quiet? You're irritating me. Could you point out to me where it says that he is going to pay support?
And number 5, it's the second page.
It says grantor, that's him, consents to the custodian, that's you, seeking any and all revenues which might be able to contribute or assist in the healthy environment in which this child will be a part of. Who prepared this for you?
She did.
I didn't. I'm not a lawyer. I did the best I
Okay.
could.
Okay. This still doesn't address an agreement that you had. Let's start with her. You know, when you have an agreement, I will take care of Tiffany, but you have to pay the child's expenses. That will be less than such a month, and I will be reimbursed for that. That's a contract. So what you're really coming in here is suing on. The only thing you could sue on is a verbal contract. You
That's
didn't
all that I
have.
had.
You didn't have one with her.
Well, with her, there was no contract. It was she,
She just said, "Would you help me?"
right, and I did.
Now, with him, you had no verbal contract with him that he was going to pay you a certain amount of support for taking care of the child. This says that you can apply for any assistance.
And I did. I applied for Medi-Cal and for the baby, for insurance, health reasons. And 2 days later, after I applied for her, they revoked the power of attorney.
Sure did.
They took her from me the
got
second
that
time
copy.
with 4 police officers. I do not know what she told them, but they came into my home, took her in her underwear
She was in
and
jumpers.
diapers and booties, and I never got to say goodbye. I didn't know why.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'm receiving aid from my son and daughter until I get on my feet.
You get on your feet. You're standing on your feet.
Exactly right.
You're standing on your feet.
Closed captioning, sponsored in part by Real Cases, Real People, Judge Judy. Christina Lillard claims Martha Flynn and Gary Christensen owe her for taking care of their daughter for nearly a year.
Okay, so you revoked the guardianship that you had given her.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me why.
Because at the time, my grandfather was having a birthday party, and I wanted to take my daughter to the party, and I was denied that. And I finally realized that it was time for my kids to be together, so I had to do this to revoke to get my daughter out of their home.
Where do you work now?
It's appliance.
How long have you worked there?
About 5 years.
You're not married to her, is that right?
No.
You legally been declared the father of these two children in any court?
No.
Where are those welfare papers? Let's see them. Did you name him as the father of these children in your welfare application?
And my son, it was undetermined, and we are going through courts right now to establish paternity for that.
You don't have to go through courts to establish paternity. When you apply for public assistance in this country,
They
they
are
ask you
doing
who the father of the children are. Did you name him as the father
No.
of your two children? The answer is you did not.
No, I did not.
Right.
As my daughter, she was.
Yes, I'm named for the daughter, but not for my son.
In your welfare application.
That's right.
Just a second. In your welfare application,
For my son, it is unknown, and for my daughter, it is Gary Christensen.
it says that here?
I don't know what it says right there.
Oh, no, it doesn't say anything about you naming anybody as the father of
Well,
these
that's
children.
only one form of a form of approval of assistance. That's only one form of everything you have to file
Has
for.
the Department of Social Services, the State Department of Social Services, brought you into court for support? No. You know why? Because she didn't tell him you were the father. Do you want to know why?
It was uncertain.
Because if she told them that you were the father, they would come against you for the support that she had been
It was
receiving for the
uncertain.
children.
I'm the one who turned his name in. It was uncertain
What made you certain now?
because I just started dating Gary at the time I got pregnant.
Well,
with my
what
son.
makes you certain now that he's the father
We are
of
going
both?
through paternity right
So
now.
are you telling me now that you're not the father, that you don't know whether he's the father of your older
I'm telling-
child?
yeah, that's exactly right. What I'm saying.
Is that right? Do you two live together?
No.
But they do live under the same roof.
They do.
Yes,
In
yes,
whose
they do.
house?
Gary's
I've
grandmother.
been living with my grandmother. My grandmother has let her and my daughter and son come in till they're
And son. So your daughter and son, according
Right.
to you,
That's right.
both children, yours, come live in your house?
no,
No.
my grandmother.
Your
This is my
grandmother's
mother.
house. And you have two separate rooms, I assume?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what's the status of your welfare case now?
I'm receiving aid for my son and daughter until I get on my feet.
You get on your feet. You're standing on your feet.
Exactly right.
You're standing on your feet.
Exactly right.
Judge Judy continues.